I was rewiring an old ham radio when my life split in two. Tuesday afternoon, early February. My garage workshop smelled like motor oil and sawdust, George Jones playing low on the transistor. The space heater clicked on and off, fighting the cold seeping through the walls. I had my reading glasses slipping down my nose, soldering iron cooling on the bench, and a thermos of coffee Carol made before she left for her book club. Peaceful. The kind of quiet a man earns after 67 years. Then my phone buzzed. Earl's name. Earl never texted. Never used that urgent tone people save for emergencies. Call me, now. My hands went cold around the coffee thermos. I set down the soldering iron, didn't turn off the radio, figured I'd be right back. Earl's kitchen table was 30 feet away through February cold. I didn't grab my coat. Earl's kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and Old Spice. The wall clock ticked too loud, one of those old Westclox numbers that sound like a hammer on wood. Earl sat at his Formica table, hands flat on either side of something face down between us. His hands were shaking. Earl's hands never shook, not even when he told me about Porkchop Hill back in '53. Ray, he said, didn't look at me. I'm sorry. I pulled out the chrome chair. It scraped loud against the linoleum and sat down heavy. My heart was already going. Been watching 3 weeks now, Earl said. His voice had that flat quality he got when he was forcing himself through something. Military discipline, overriding everything else. Tuesdays and Thursdays, regular as clockwork. 20 minutes after you leave for the commercial site. He slid the photograph across the table. I didn't want to touch it, didn't want to flip it over. But Earl's arthritis was bad enough he'd had to use both hands to push it. And if he could do that, I could look. The photo showed a man coming down my front steps. Younger guy, maybe early 40s. Expensive jacket, the kind that costs more than I make in a week. Confident stride, like he belonged there. The timestamp in the corner read 10:47 a.m. last Tuesday. Through my living room window, visible behind him, I could see the breakfast dishes I'd washed that morning. Carol's car was in the driveway. I didn't want to show you, Earl said quietly, but a man deserves to know what's happening under his own roof. I studied the photo. The guy's face was clear, good-looking in that gym rat way, styled hair, sunglasses pushed up on his head. He was smiling. Actually smiling, like he'd just had the best morning of his life. My coffee from Earl's kitchen went cold in my hand. Who is he? My voice didn't sound like mine. Don't know, but he's got a red Mercedes. Parked it 2 houses down, walks up casual. Stays about an hour, leaves looking like that. Earl gestured at the photo. I started documenting when I noticed the pattern. Pattern? 3 weeks, Ray. Same days, same times. Like clockwork. I set the photo down. Couldn't look at it anymore, but couldn't look at Earl either. Looked at my hands instead. Work-worn, calloused, wedding ring I'd worn 12 years now. Carol told me she's got book club, I said. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Earl said nothing. Didn't need to. I stood up. The chair scraped again. Picked up the photo, folded it once, put it in my shirt pocket. Earl stood too, but I was already moving toward the door. Ray, I need to go home. You want me to? No. I left Earl's house without another word. Walked the 30 feet back to my driveway like I was moving through water. Everything felt slow and wrong and too clear all at once. My work truck sat in the driveway. I'd left a job site in the middle of running conduit. 40 years in electrical work, I'd never walked off a job. But I couldn't remember driving home. Couldn't remember anything between reading Earl's text and sitting in his kitchen. I got in the truck, turned the key, backed out. The drive to my house took 4 minutes. I ran the stop sign. At Main and Oak. Didn't even see it. Some lady in a sedan honked, and I didn't care. 4 minutes, and my whole life kept replaying. Carol saying she needed something for herself, something social. Book club sounded good, she'd said. Meeting women her age, reading things, expanding her mind. I'd thought it was nice. Thought it meant she was happy. 8 months. She'd been going 8 months. I pulled into the driveway behind her sedan, the blue Camry I'd helped her pick out 3 years ago. The house sat quiet in the February cold. White ranch, 3 bedrooms, the one I'd bought in 1998 when I was still married to my first wife. Paid it off in 2012. Every nail, every shingle, every wire. I knew this house like I knew my own hands. Carol was visible through the living room window. She wasn't moving. Just sitting on the couch, facing the window, like she'd been watching for me. There was a box of tissues on the cushion beside her. I sat in the truck for a full minute, engine running, hands on the wheel. She didn't look away. Didn't pretend. Just sat there, waiting. She knew. Somehow she knew I'd found out. She was ready with tears before I even got my boots off. I didn't take my boots off. Carol heard the front door and stood up from the couch. Her face was already wet, tissues wadded in her hands. She'd been crying before I walked in. Real tears, or practiced ones, I couldn't tell yet. Ray, she said. Just my name, like it hurt her to say it. I closed the door behind me, stood on the mat, where I always took my boots off, where The tile was worn from 30 years of the same routine. This time I tracked mud across it. Didn't care. I pulled the photo from my shirt pocket and threw it on the coffee table between us. Carol looked at it. Fresh tears came. But her face didn't change. No surprise, no confusion. Just tears, like she had been expecting this exact moment. "Who is he?" My voice came out flat. She sat back down, slow, like her legs wouldn't hold her, picked up the photo with shaking hands, stared at it for too long. "I need to tell you something." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I should have told you 12 years ago." I didn't sit, didn't move, just stood there with my boots muddy on her clean floor, waiting. "Ray, I'm so sorry. I was scared you'd be angry I kept this from you." "Who is he?" Carol twisted the tissues in her lap, looked up at me with those eyes that used to make me feel like I mattered, like I was enough. "That man," she said, his name is Jason. He's my son." The words didn't make sense. I heard them, but they bounced off something in my brain that knew better. "You don't have a son?" Why, my voice sounded far away. "You told me you couldn't have kids. You said—" I gave him up. The words rushed out now, like she'd rehearsed them. "When I was 17, closed adoption. I never thought I'd see him again, but he found me, Ray, 2 years ago. He hired one of those services, traced the records. He found me." I sat down then, had to. The couch cushion sagged under my weight, and I felt every one of my 67 years pressing down. 2 years. She'd known for 2 years and never said a word. "Why didn't you tell me?" It came out quieter than I meant. I was scared. She reached for my hand. I let her take it, felt her fingers cold against mine. "You'd been so clear when we got married. No kids, no complications. You'd raised yours, buried your wife. You wanted peace. I thought if I told you I had a son out there somewhere, you'd think I lied to you." "You did lie to me." I know, and I'm sorry. When Jason contacted me, I didn't know what to do. He wanted to meet, wanted to know his birth mother. How could I say no? But I was terrified of losing you, so I met him in secret. The book club was a lie, yet, and for 30 seconds, maybe a full minute, I felt something like relief wash through me. Cold water in my veins, clearing out the poison. Not an affair, just a secret, just fear, a son. She had a son. People did that, gave up babies, spent their lives regretting it. I could understand that. I could forgive that. I squeezed her hand. "Carol, we could have worked through this. If you'd just told me—" Her phone rang. It was sitting on the coffee table next to the photo, face up. The screen lit up bright. The contact name read Jason with 3 heart emojis. Below it, a text message preview. "Can't wait for Friday. Told David I'm leaving him for you. We'll have everything we need once the house money clears." Carol's face went white. She lunged for the phone. I was faster. Picked it up before she could grab it. She didn't fight me. Just froze. Hand outstretched. Mouth open. I read the message again. Then I scrolled up. Weeks of texts. Explicit ones. Planning ones. Nothing about mothers and sons. Everything about lovers. "Can't wait to taste you again. Ray's gone until 3. We have time. The old man doesn't suspect anything. Did you talk to the mortgage guy? Once we get the house money, we're done here. Arizona sounds good. Somewhere warm to start over." I kept scrolling. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought they'd shake. But they were steady as rock. 8 months of messages, hotel receipts, photos I didn't want to see. References to David, Jason's actual partner, apparently the one he was leaving. Plans to refinance the house, my house. The one I'd bought in 1998, paid off in 2012, the one piece of earth that was fully mine. Plans to take it and run. I looked up at Carol. She was crying harder now, but different. Not performance tears, panic tears. "Ray, I can explain. You just told me he was your son." My voice was dead. "You looked me in the eye and told me he was your son. Made up the whole story. Adoption, searching, finding you. All of it. Made it up in 30 seconds. I panicked. How long?" I stood up. The phone felt heavy in my hand. "How long has this been going on? Ray? How long?" 8 months, a whisper. "And the house money?" She didn't answer, just cried. I opened the text thread again. Found the one about the mortgage. Clicked the link Carol had sent Jason. It opened a PDF, refinancing documents dated November, 4 months ago. $80,000, cash out. My signature on the bottom line. Except I'd never signed it. I zoomed in on the signature. It was close. Same loops, same slant, but the pressure was wrong. The R in Ray had a tail I never made. "You forged my signature." We needed the money. We? Jason's got some debts, some opportunities, and I thought, "You thought you'd steal from me?" I picked up my truck keys from where I dropped them on the end table. Carol stood up, reached for me. "Ray, please, I do love you. I do. But I'm not in love with you anymore. You're comfortable, you're safe. Jason makes me feel alive. Don't you understand? I'm 58 years old, and I feel alive for the first time in years. I looked at her then, really looked. Saw the woman I'd married 12 years ago when I was 55, and lonely, and thought I'd found companionship for whatever years I had left. Saw the woman who'd cooked breakfast this morning, made my coffee, kissed my cheek before I left for work. Saw a stranger. I'll stay at Earl's, I said. Don't be here when I get back tomorrow. Her face shifted. The tears stopped, just like that. Something harder came into her eyes. Ray, this is my house too, legally. We're married. You can't just kick me out. I walked to the door, put my hand on the knob. Watch me. I'll call my lawyer, she said behind me. I'm entitled to half of everything. You can't do this. I opened the door. February cold hit my face. Already did. I walked out, didn't look back. Heard her shouting something about legal rights, about community property, about how she'd make this hard if I wanted to play games. I got in my truck, started the engine, backed out of the driveway. Carol stood in the doorway, phone already at her ear. By the time I got back to Earl's house, 30 feet, 10 seconds, I had a voicemail. Mike Brennan, the only lawyer in town who wasn't Carol's second cousin. Ray, it's Mike. Carol just called me. Actually, she called her lawyer, who called me. We need to talk. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, my office. It's not good news, but come anyway. I sat in Earl's driveway, engine running, and played the message 3 times. Not good news. I didn't know the law would be on her side. Earl's guest room smelled like Tide detergent and mothballs. The radiator clanked every few minutes. Clank, clank, hiss, like it was trying to tell me something in Morse code. Through the wall, I could hear Earl's TV, muffled news about things that didn't matter anymore. I lay on sheets that weren't mine, staring at a ceiling that wasn't mine, in a house that wasn't mine. For the first time in 20 years, I didn't have a home. Sleep didn't come. I watched the digital clock on the nightstand tick from 11:47 to 2:18 to 4:33. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Carol's face shifting from tears to calculation. Heard her voice. This is my house too, legally. And at 5:47, Earl's coffee maker started gurgling in the kitchen. I got up, dressed in yesterday's clothes, and found him at the Formica table with 2 mugs already poured. Didn't think you'd sleep, he said. I sat down without answering. The coffee was strong enough to strip paint. I drank it anyway. Earl slid his phone across the table. Mike Brennan's number was on the screen. You need to know how bad it is, he said. Can't get worse than not knowing. I called Mike from Earl's kitchen. He answered on the first ring, voice already tired at 6 in the morning. Ray, can you come in at 9? Tell me now. It's better if... Tell me now, Mike. He sighed. I heard papers rustling, the squeak of a desk chair. I was a no-fault divorce state, he said. Means it doesn't matter who cheated, who lied. Asset division is 50-50 unless there's a prenup or separate property. You added Carol to the deed in 2022 when you refinanced to fix the roof. For estate planning, you said. Yeah, so? So she owns half the house, has since 2022. Doesn't matter that you bought it in 98, paid it off in 2012. Far as the law's concerned, it's marital property. She files for divorce. She's entitled to $90,000, minimum. The coffee turned sour in my stomach. She stole from me, Mike. Forged my signature. Took out $80,000. I know. I pulled the county records this morning. That refinancing? Her signature's on file too, as co-owner. But Ray, look at yours. It's not mine. I know that. You know that. But proving it in court? That's handwriting experts, depositions, discovery. We're talking $50,000 in legal fees. Maybe more. And Carol's got a lawyer from Des Moines, firm called Ashford and Pierce. They're not cheap, which means she's serious. I set the coffee down before I threw it. What are my chances if I fight? Mike was quiet for a long moment. Right now, maybe 30%. Iowa law is pretty clear on marital property. And juries don't like divorce cases. They just want it over. But, Ray, if we can prove she forged that signature, everything changes. Forgery is a Class C felony. That's criminal fraud. She'd be looking at prison time, not a settlement. But proving it cost money I don't have. Yeah. I sat there in Earl's kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, and did the math. $23,000 in savings. 30 years to build that. Mike's retainer alone would take half of it, and we'd burn through the rest before we even got to trial. Come in at 9, Mike said quietly. We'll figure out what you've got. I ended the call, handed Earl his phone back. Well, Earl asked. She gets half. The law says she gets half of everything, even though she stole from me. Even though she's been screwing some gym rat in my bed while I was at work. Earl's jaw tightened. He stood up, poured more coffee neither of us wanted. What about the forgery? Can prove it if I've got 50 grand I don't have. So she wins. Yeah, she wins. We sat in silence until the clock on the wall said 7:15. Then Earl stood up, went to his bedroom, came back with a manila folder. He opened it on the table between us. 63 photographs, time-stamped. 3 weeks of Jason's red Mercedes parked 2 houses down. Jason walking up my driveway. Jason leaving with that smile on his face. Different days, different times. All Tuesday and Thursday mornings. That's evidence, Earl said. Pattern evidence? Proof of adultery. Mike said adultery doesn't matter in Iowa. Maybe not for the house, but for leverage? For making her think twice about dragging this out? Earl tapped the folder. This matters. My doorbell rang at 8:47. Earl looked through the window, then back at me. It's the pastor. Reverend Walsh stood on Earl's porch with a casserole dish in his hands. White ceramic covered in foil. The man had been doing pastoral care for 35 years. He knew a crisis when he saw one. Earl called me, Walsh said when I opened the door. Said you might need to talk. I almost said no. Almost told him I didn't need sermons or Bible verses or whatever comfort he thought he could offer. But the casserole smelled like his wife Diane's pot roast. And I hadn't eaten since yesterday's breakfast, and Walsh had kind eyes. Come in, I said. We sat in Earl's living room, me on the couch, Walsh in the recliner, Earl in the kitchen doorway, giving us space but staying close. The casserole sat on the coffee table between us, getting cold. I'm not here to preach, Walsh said. I'm here because Earl told me what happened, and I've been where you are. Carol left you too? No. But I almost lost Diane. Year 8 of our marriage. I had an emotional affair with a parishioner. Never physical, but it might as well have been. Diane found emails, asked me to leave. I lived in the church office for 6 months. I looked at him different then. Walsh, with his gentle voice and his pot roast, his 35 years of ministry, hard to picture him as anything but steady. How'd you get her back? I didn't, at first. I had to decide what I was protecting, my dignity or my ego. Dignity meant being honest, doing the work, giving her space to choose. Ego meant defending myself, making excuses, demanding forgiveness. I chose dignity, left for 6 months, went to counseling, let her decide if she wanted me back. And she did. Eventually. But Ray, that's not your story. Carol already chose. She chose him. The question now is what you're protecting. My house, my money, everything I built. Walsh leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Is it revenge you want or justice? I don't know the difference anymore. Revenge is making her hurt. Justice is protecting what's yours. One destroys you, the other preserves you. Earl came into the living room then, sat on the arm of the couch beside me. Tell him about Martha, Earl said to Walsh. Walsh nodded. I know Martha at the county clerk's office. Good woman, 20 years on the job. She's the one who processes property records, refinancing documents. If there's something wrong with that paperwork, Martha would know. And she'd tell you? She'd tell the truth. That's all any of us can do. I sat there between Earl and Walsh, 71 and 68, 2 old men who'd lived long enough to know that sometimes help comes quiet, without fanfare, just coffee and casseroles and phone numbers. Mike's office was above the hardware store on Main Street. I climbed the stairs at 8:57, Walsh and Earl behind me. The office smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Mike sat behind a desk piled with manila folders, a space heater buzzing at his feet. He looked up when we walked in, took in the 3 of us, and something in his face softened. Brought reinforcements, he said. Brought friends, I corrected. Mike gestured at the chairs, cheap vinyl, the kind that stick to your legs in summer. We sat. Okay, Mike said. Let's see what we're working with. Earl slid the folder of photographs across the desk. Mike opened it, studied the images, nodded slowly. Pattern evidence. Good. Establishes timeline, shows premeditation. Won't help with property division, but it shows character. Juries care about character. Walsh pulled out his phone. I called Martha this morning, asked her to pull the refinancing documents, just to review them for estate planning purposes. Mike's eyebrow went up. Estate planning. She's a member of my congregation. Happy to help. Walsh smiled. She'll call me back this afternoon. Gentlemen, Mike said, you're building me a case. We're building Ray a life, Earl corrected. Mike pulled out a legal pad, started making notes. Dates, names, amounts. The scratch of his pen was the only sound for a full minute. Then his phone rang. Mike Brennan. He listened, his face going still. Yes, I see. Can you email me that? And Margaret's contact information. Thank you, Martha. He hung up, looked at me. Margaret Chen, she's the notary whose stamp is on your refinancing documents. Martha just called her. And? Margaret retired in June of 2023, hasn't notarized a single document since. Never met anyone named Carol Miller. The room went quiet. Someone forged the notary stamp, Walsh said softly. Mike leaned back in his chair. It squeaked. That's not just fraud, that's criminal fraud. Class C felony. Ray, this changes everything. How? Because now Carol's not just taking half your house in a divorce. She's facing 5 years in prison, and people facing prison, they settle. Earl's hand landed on my shoulder. Heavy, solid, real. Now we've got leverage, he said. Mike's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then at me. Carol's lawyer wants to talk settlement. Already? Word travels fast in legal circles. Margaret probably called her sister-in-law Martha, who mentioned she was pulling records for a client. Ashford's smart enough to know what that means. Mike looked at me. What do you want to do? I thought about Carol's face when she said, this is my house too. Thought about 30 years of work, of overtime, of weekends spent fixing what broke. Thought about Walsh's question, revenge or justice. Tell him no settlement yet, I said. Tell him we're filing fraud charges by end of business tomorrow unless she signs a quitclaim deed and returns every cent from that refinancing. Mike smiled. Now you're playing offense. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Text from Carol. You're really gonna do this? Destroy me? I typed back, you destroyed yourself. Didn't send it, deleted it instead. Typed, sign the papers or face charges, your choice. Hit send. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I need to think. You've got until tomorrow at 5 p.m., I replied. Earl stood up. I'm buying lunch. All of us. Miller's Diner. You need to eat. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until he said it. Hadn't eaten since yesterday's breakfast. And my hands were shaking from coffee and adrenaline and the weight of everything shifting. We walked down Main Street, 4 men in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. Peg at the diner had coffee poured before we sat down. She touched my shoulder when she set down the mug. Good to see you, Ray, she said. Just that. But the way she said it, I knew she knew. Word traveled fast in small towns. And this town was mine. Carol didn't respond by 5 p.m. Didn't respond by 6 p.m. either, or 7 or 8. By 9 p.m., I was back in Earl's guest room, staring at the same ceiling, listening to the same radiator clank its rhythm. My phone sat on the nightstand, silent. At 10:47, I know because I watched the clock flip, Earl knocked on the door. You awake? Yeah. Come on out. Brought bourbon. I found him in his living room, TV on mute showing the news crawl. 2 glasses on the coffee table, bottle of Maker's Mark between them. Earl poured 2 fingers in each glass without asking if I wanted it. I sat on the couch, took the glass. We drank in silence for a while. My daughter's name is Emily, Earl said finally. She's 51 now. Lives in Cedar Rapids. Haven't talked to her in 6 years. I looked at him. Earl never talked about Emily. I knew he had a daughter, knew she was grown, knew something had gone wrong between them. That was all. She married young, Earl continued. 22, guy named Derek, seemed decent enough. Steady job, treated her okay at first. They had 3 kids by the time she was 30. He took another drink. The bourbon caught the lamplight. Looked like amber. I saw Derek with another woman when Emily was about 35. Hardware store parking lot. They were in his truck, and it wasn't hard to figure out what they'd been doing. He saw me seeing him. Nodded at me. Actually nodded like we had an understanding. Did you tell Emily? No. The word came out flat. Told myself it wasn't my business. Told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was innocent. Told myself a lot of things that added up to me staying quiet because I was scared. Scared of what? Of being wrong. Of Emily hating me for interfering, of breaking up her family if I was right. He set his glass down. Turned out Derek kept at it for another 15 years. Different women, different excuses. Emily finally caught him when she was 50. Found emails, texts, the whole thing. Filed for divorce. Lost the house. Most of her savings. Derek married one of the women a year later. The radiator clanked. On the TV, a weatherman pointed at a map neither of us could see. When Emily found out, she called me. Asked if I'd ever suspected. I told her the truth, that I'd seen him, that I'd known for years. What did she say? She said, you knew, and you said nothing. You let me waste 15 years. And then she hung up. That was 6 years ago. She won't take my calls, won't answer my letters. I've got 3 grandkids I've never met. Earl poured another 2 fingers in each glass. I failed her by staying quiet, he said. Won't fail you. I didn't know what to say to that. Sat there holding my bourbon, feeling the weight of Earl's regret like it was my own. The photos, I said. You took them because of Emily. Took them because silence is what cowards choose. I was a coward once. Not again. My phone buzzed on the nightstand in the guest room. We both heard it through the wall. I got up, retrieved it. Text from an unknown number. This is James Ashford, Mrs. Miller's attorney. We need to discuss settlement terms. Can we meet tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office in Des Moines? I showed Earl the message. That's fast, he said. Mike said they'd move fast once they knew about the fraud. You going? Mike's office, my terms. Not driving to Des Moines to sit in some Sharks conference room. I texted back. Miller's Diner, Tuesday noon, my lawyer will be present. Bring documents. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared. That's unconventional. That's my offer. Long pause. Then, I'll need to consult with my client. You've got until Monday, 5 p.m. After that, we file charges. No response. I set the phone down. Earl smiled. You're learning. Learning what? That scared people make mistakes. Carol's scared now. Her lawyer's scared. They thought they had you cornered, and now you've got them on a deadline with criminal charges hanging over their heads. It doesn't mean I get the money back. Mike said even if we win, Jason spent it. You get the house. That's not nothing. It's not $80,000. No, but it's yours. Fully yours. No one can take it. Earl leaned back in his recliner. I learned something in Korea. You know what the hardest part of combat is? Staying alive. Knowing what you're willing to lose. Some guys couldn't let go of anything. Had to win every inch, hold every position. They died stupid deaths for stupid reasons. The ones who survived? They knew what mattered and what didn't. They'd give up ground to save men, trade territory for time, lose a battle to win a war. I looked at my bourbon. You're saying let the money go. I'm saying decide what you're fighting for. If it's $80,000 that's already spent, you'll spend the next 10 years angry. If it's your house, your dignity, your right to not be stolen from, that's a fight you can win. Feels like losing either way. Yeah, but some losses leave you standing, some don't. The TV flickered. A commercial for medication I didn't need, then back to news I didn't care about. Walsh asked me today if I wanted revenge or justice. I said, I didn't know the answer. Oh, you know now? I thought about Carol's face when she said Jason made her feel alive. Thought about her sitting in our house right now, my house, probably on the phone with Jason, probably planning their next move. Thought about the $80,000 gone into some gym rat's car payment and Vegas trips and whatever else worthless things money could buy. I want her gone, I said. I want my house back. I want to not feel like a fool every time I walk through that door. I don't care about making her hurt. I just want her gone. That's not revenge, Earl said. That's justice. My phone buzzed again. Different number this time. Carol's cell, voice message. I played it on speaker so Earl could hear. Carol's voice, thick with tears. Ray, please. You're really gonna ruin my life over this? I made mistakes. I know I did. But 5 years in prison? That's not fair. We can work this out. We can split things fairly, move on. You don't have to be cruel. The message ended. Earl raised an eyebrow. She thinks asking for half your house after forging your signature is fair? She thinks I'm being cruel. You're being just. There's a difference. I didn't call her back. Didn't text. Set the phone face down on the coffee table and finished my bourbon. At 11:30, Earl's phone rang. He looked at the screen, frowned, answered. This is Earl. Pause. Yeah, he's here. He looked at me. It's Mike. He put it on speaker. Ray, quick update. Ashford called me 10 minutes ago. Carol wants to accept the diner meeting, Tuesday noon. But there's a complication. What kind? She wants to bring Jason. Earl and I looked at each other. Why? I asked. Ashford didn't say. But Ray, if I had to guess, she wants you to see them together. Wants you to back down. It's an intimidation tactic. Will it work? Earl asked. Not if Ray doesn't let it. Mike paused. Ray, you okay with this? I thought about Jason's smile in the photograph, his expensive jacket, his red Mercedes, his text calling me the old man, like I was already dead. Yeah, I said. Let him come. I want him to see what happens when you steal from people. Okay, I'll confirm with Ashford. Tuesday noon, Miller's Diner. Bring your evidence folders. We will. Mike hung up. Earl refilled our glasses without asking. 5 days, he said. You ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. We sat there until after midnight. 2 old men drinking bourbon in front of a muted TV, not talking, not needing to. The radiator kept its rhythm. The bourbon burned just right. And outside Earl's window, across 30 feet of frozen February lawn, my house sat dark. Carol's car in the driveway. Her lights on in the bedroom we used to share. 5 days until Tuesday. I could wait. Saturday morning, Martha called Walsh back. I was in Mike's office when it happened. Mike, Earl, Walsh, and me spread out around the desk like we were planning a military operation. Which, in a way, we were. Walsh's phone lit up. He answered, listened, said, "Thank you, Martha," 3 times, then hung up and looked at us. "Margaret Chen will swear an affidavit," he said. She never notarized Carol's refinancing documents. Never met her. The stamp on those papers is a photocopy of her old stamp. Margaret can tell by the resolution quality. Oh, Mike leaned forward. She'll testify to that? She's offended. Says someone using her license number for fraud makes her look bad. She wants to help. Good. Mike made a note. That's our criminal case, Ray. We file Monday morning unless Carol settles. But there's something you need to understand. What? That $80,000 is gone. Even if we prove fraud, even if we win everything, Jason spent it. Car payments, gambling debts, whatever. It's not coming back. The words sat heavy in the room. So I lose either way, I said. You keep the house. That's worth $180,000, free and clear. She walks away with nothing except avoiding prison. Mike folded his hands. Ray, that's a win. Earl's hand landed on my shoulder. The house is what matters. The money's just money. I knew he was right. Didn't mean it didn't hurt. Okay, I said. We go forward. Tuesday noon, Miller's Diner. Mike pulled out 3 manila folders, the kind with the metal clasp, official looking. He started organizing documents. Folder 1, he said, spreading Earl's photographs on the desk. Pattern evidence. 63 photos over 3 weeks. Shows premeditation, systematic deception. And with folder 2, he added the refinancing documents with my forged signature, Margaret's affidavit, the notary analysis. Criminal fraud, Class C felony, 5 years prison time. Folder 3, he looked at me. Do you have access to Carol's text messages? I took screenshots before she changed her passwords. Send them to me, tonight. Everyone that shows planning, conspiracy, intent to defraud. And I pulled out my phone, started scrolling. 8 months of messages. I'd screenshotted that terrible Tuesday afternoon. Carol and Jason discussing the old man. Plans to refinance, plans to leave. Plans to start over somewhere warm. I sent them all to Mike. Watching them upload felt like bleeding. Good, Mike said when his phone buzzed with the files. Folder 3 is premeditation. Shows this wasn't impulsive. She planned to steal from you for months. He stacked the 3 folders on his desk. They looked official, damning. These go to the diner Tuesday. We present them in order. Photos first, establish the affair. Fraud second, establish the crime. Text third, establish intent. By the time we're done, Ashford will be advising Carol to sign whatever we put in front of her. What if she doesn't? I asked. Then we file criminal charges Wednesday morning, and she explains to a judge why she forged a notary stamp to steal $80,000 from her husband. Earl smiled. I like our odds better now. Sunday after church, Walsh pulled me aside in the parking lot. The service had been hard, sitting in the pew I'd shared with Carol for 12 years, everyone knowing, no one saying anything. Peg had smiled at me. Bill and Jean, the farmers who always sat in back, had nodded. Small gestures, but they mattered. Ray, Walsh said, I want you to know something. What you're doing, protecting what's yours, that's righteous. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for it. Carol's voicemail said I was being cruel. Carol forged your signature and stole $80,000. You're giving her a chance to walk away without prison time. That's mercy, not cruelty. And a car pulled into the parking lot. Expensive sedan, Des Moines plates. James Ashford got out, 50-something, sharp suit, lawyer face. He saw me, Walsh, walked over. Mitz Miller, he said, extending his hand. I didn't shake it. Reverend. He nodded at Walsh. I wonder if we might speak privately. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of Reverend Walsh. Ashford glanced around the parking lot. People leaving church, cars pulling out, Sunday morning in a small town where everyone was watching. Fine, my client is prepared to negotiate, but she's concerned about the public nature of your proposed meeting location. Miller's Diner, Tuesday noon, those are the terms. Miss Miller, surely we can conduct this in my office, where nobody sees, where it's private, professional, easy for you to control. I crossed my arms. No thanks. We do this public or we do it in court. Your choice. Ashford's jaw tightened. My client is willing to sign the quitclaim deed. She's willing to walk away from the property, but she's requesting that you waive criminal charges and agree not to pursue recovery of the refinancing proceeds. She wants me to let her steal $80,000 and walk away clean. The money is gone, Mr. Miller. Pursuing it would be, I know it's gone. But she doesn't get to steal and face no consequences. She signs the deed, she walks away, broke and embarrassed, or she faces 5 years in Mitchellville Women's Prison. That's the deal. Ashford looked at Walsh. Reverend, surely you can talk some sense. Mr. Miller is showing remarkable restraint, Walsh said quietly. If someone forged my signature and stole from me, I'd want justice too. He's offering your client a way out. She should take it. Ashford pulled out his phone, stepped away, made a call. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw his face. Frustrated, tired, the look of a lawyer who knows his client is guilty. He came back 2 minutes later. Tuesday noon, Miller's Diner. But Mr. Miller, if you humiliate my client publicly, I'm presenting evidence. If that humiliates her, that's on her, not me. Ashford got back in his car without another word. Walsh waited until he'd driven away, then said, You handled that well. Didn't feel like it. Felt like I was shaking. You were, but you didn't back down. That's courage. Monday morning, Mike called. Ashford just emailed me. Carol's bringing Jason to the diner. I know. You told me Friday. Yeah, but Ray, there's something else. I did some digging on Jason Kerr. He's got a record, nothing major, but petty theft from 2008, bad checks from 2012, currently lives in a downtown apartment he can barely afford, drives a car that's leveraged to hell, and has $17,000 in credit card debt. So he's broke. He's a parasite. And Ray, men like that, they're dangerous when cornered. If he feels threatened Tuesday, he might try something. Like what? Getting aggressive. Making a scene. Trying to intimidate you into backing down. I thought about the photo. Jason's confident smile, his expensive jacket, his gym rat build. Earl will be there, I said. Good. Make sure he is. And Ray, don't engage with Jason. Don't talk to him. Don't look at him if you can help it. Present your evidence to Ashford and Carol. Jason's just noise. Got it. One more thing. I'm bringing the quitclaim deed already drawn up. If Carol agrees, she signs it right there. We get it notarized. Peg at the diner's a notary. Did you know that? And it's done. You own the house free and clear by end of business Tuesday. What if she doesn't sign? Then I file criminal charges first thing Wednesday morning. I've already drafted the complaint. It's ready to go. I hung up and stared at the ceiling of Earl's guest room. 48 hours until Tuesday. 48 hours until I faced Carol and Jason and Ashford across a table at Miller's Diner, with my whole town watching. Earl knocked on the door. You good? Getting there. Come on. We're going to the diner. You need to see the layout, figure out where everyone sits. You're serious? Military planning. Know your terrain. He grinned. Plus, Peg's got pie today. We walked into Miller's Diner at 11 a.m. Monday. Peg looked up from behind the counter, saw us, smiled. Ray, Earl, coffee? Please, I said. She poured 2 mugs, brought them to the booth Earl had chosen, back corner, clear view of the entrance, backs to the wall. Military tactics. This is where you sit tomorrow, Earl said. Mike next to you, me in the booth behind you, Walsh 2 booths over. Carol and her people come in. They have to walk past all of us. They sit across from you, facing the door. Why does that matter? Because they'll see everyone watching. They'll see Bill and Jean in their usual spot. They'll see Peg. They'll see this is your town, not theirs. Psychological advantage. Peg came back with pie. Apple, warm, 2 forks. You boys planning something for tomorrow? She asked. Just having a meeting, I said. Well, you let me know if you need anything. And Ray, whatever's happening, you've got people on your side. This town doesn't forget who's been here 40 years and who's just passing through. And she squeezed my shoulder and walked away. Earl dug into the pie. See? Psychological advantage. Tuesday morning came too fast and too slow. I woke at 5 a.m. in Earl's guest room, showered, put on clean jeans and my good flannel shirt, the one without stains or holes. Looked at myself in the mirror and saw a 67-year-old man who'd been married twice, widowed once, betrayed once, and was about to face the woman who'd stolen from him. I looked tired, but I looked ready. Earl was already in the kitchen, coffee made, dressed in his khakis and a button-down. He'd shaved. Looked like he was going to court. You clean up nice, I said. Figure if we're doing this public, might as well look respectable. He poured me coffee. Mike's meeting us there at 11:45, Walsh at 11:50. We go in first, stake our claim. And Carol? She'll be late, power play, trying to make you wait, make you nervous. It's working. Good. Nervous keeps you sharp. We drove separately to the diner, Earl in his truck, me in mine. Pulled into the parking lot at 11:43. Mike was already there, briefcase in hand, 3 manila folders visible through the leather. Walsh arrived 2 minutes later, gave me a nod, a small smile. You ready? Mike asked. No, but let's do it anyway. We walked into Miller's Diner together. The diner was half full, Tuesday lunch crowd, meatloaf special. Bill and Jean sat in their usual corner booth, coffee and newspapers. Peg stood behind the counter, wiping down the Formica, and when she saw us, she grabbed 4 menus without being asked. "Your booth's ready, gentlemen," she said. Earl's booth. Back corner, clear sight lines, backs to the wall. Mike and I slid in on one side. Earl took the booth directly behind us. Walsh chose a table 2 rows over, opened a newspaper like he was just there for lunch. Mike set his briefcase on the table, pulled out the 3 manila folders, stacked them in front of him. They looked official, heavy, full of consequences. Peg appeared with coffee. "Just for you boys," she said, pointedly not setting cups at the empty side of our booth. "Thanks, Peg." She touched my shoulder, quick, brief, and walked away. 11:58. The door opened. Carol walked in first. She dressed carefully. Expensive coat I'd never seen before. Sunglasses, even though it wasn't bright out. Makeup that probably took an hour. Armor. She looked around the diner, saw Bill and Jean watching, saw Peg at the counter, saw me in the back booth. Her step faltered. James Ashford came in behind her, sharp suit, leather briefcase, professional mask firmly in place. He put his hand on Carol's back, guided her forward. Then Jason walked in. Expensive cologne hit me from 10 feet away, something that probably cost $90 an ounce. He wore gym clothes under a leather jacket, designer jeans, boots that had never seen mud. His hair was styled, his jaw was set, and when he saw me his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Carol walked toward our booth like she was walking to her execution. Jason's hand was on her lower back, possessive, pushing her forward. Ashford looked tired. They stopped at our booth, stood there for a beat too long, like they were waiting for us to stand up, to show deference. We didn't. "Sit," Mike said, not a request. They slid into the booth across from us, Carol in the middle, Jason on her right, Ashford on her left. Jason sprawled, taking up space. One arm across the back of the booth behind Carol, claiming her. Peg appeared. "Coffee?" She was looking at our side of the table. "No, thank you," Ashford said. Peg nodded and walked away. The message was clear. She was serving us, not them. Ashford opened his briefcase, pulled out legal documents. "Mr. Brennan, I believe we can resolve this quickly if—" Mike slid the first folder across the table. "Let's start with evidence," he said. Ashford opened the folder. Carol leaned over to look. Jason tried to grab it. Carol pulled it away from him. 63 photographs spilled across the table. Time-stamped, sequential. Jason's red Mercedes 2 houses down. Jason walking up my driveway. Jason leaving, with that smile on his face. Different days. Different times. All Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Carol's face went white. Jason leaned forward. "So what? I was visiting her. That's not illegal." Earl stood up from the booth behind us. Didn't say anything. Just stood. All 6'2" of him, straight-backed, Marine Corps tattoo visible on his forearm. Looked at Jason. Jason's mouth closed. Earl sat back down. Mike tapped the photographs. 3 weeks of documentation, pattern evidence, shows systematic deception, premeditation. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 20 minutes after Mr. Miller left for work, your car arrived. Stayed approximately 1 hour, left. Ashford studied the photos, his professional mask cracking slightly. "These photos don't prove—" "They prove she lied, systematically, for months." Mike pulled the folder back, stacked the photos neatly. "But that's just context. This is the problem." He slid the second folder across the table. Carol's hand trembled, reaching for it. Inside, refinancing documents dated November 2024. My signature on the bottom line, except it wasn't my signature. The loops were wrong, the pressure was wrong, the tail on the R was wrong. Below that, notary stamp number 4782, Margaret Chen. Below that, Margaret Chen's affidavit, notarized 2 days ago, swearing she never notarized this document. Never met Carol Miller, retired in June 2020. Below that, analysis from a forensic document examiner showing the notary stamp was a photocopy, not an original impression. Ashford read through everything, set it down, closed his eyes briefly. "Mrs. Miller," he said quietly, "you told me your husband signed these documents." Carol's voice came out small. He would have said no. "So you forged his signature. We needed the money. That's theft. And you forged a notary stamp. That's a Class C felony." Ashford looked at Mike. "How long has your client known about this?" "Since Saturday. We filed a complaint with the county attorney this morning. It's ready to go." "What do you want?" Mike pulled out a document from his briefcase. "Quit claim deed. Mrs. Miller signs, releases all claims to the property at 247 Elm Street. Mr. Miller waives criminal prosecution." She walks away. "What about the refinancing proceeds?" Ashford asked. "Gone," Mike said flatly. "We know it's gone. We're not pursuing recovery. But she doesn't get to keep the house she tried to steal. And she doesn't get to avoid consequences." Jason leaned forward again. "This is bullshit. You can't prove—" We can prove everything, Mike interrupted. Forged signature, forged notary, 8 months of planning, which brings us to folder 3. He slid the last folder across the table. Carol started crying before she opened it. Inside, screenshots of text messages, 8 months of them. Carol and Jason discussing the old man, plans to refinance, plans to leave, plans to move to Arizona, somewhere warm to start over. Jason's messages. Once you get the house money, we're done here. The old man won't last forever. Take what you can now. Told David I'm leaving him. We'll have everything we need once the house money clears. Ashford read through them. His jaw tightened with each page. When he finished, he looked at Carol. 8 months, he said. You told me this was recent. You said 6 weeks. You've been planning to defraud your husband for 8 months, and you lied to me about it. Ashford, I'm withdrawing representation. He stood up, started packing his briefcase. Mrs. Miller, you need to sign that quitclaim deed right now, because if you don't, Mr. Brennan will file those criminal charges, and you'll be explaining to a judge why you committed felony fraud. Carol looked at Jason. What do I do? Jason was reading the text messages, his face getting red. These are private. These are evidence, Mike said. Premeditation, conspiracy, intent to defraud. You can't use these. Iowa's a one-party consent state. Mr. Miller had access to his wife's phone. These are admissible. Jason stood up fast enough to rattle the table. This is bullshit. Small-town bullshit. You people. Earl stood up again, slower this time, turned around to face Jason. Didn't say a word, just looked at him. Jason looked at Earl, looked at the tattoo, the height, the way Earl stood like a man who'd seen real combat and wasn't impressed by gym muscles and leather jackets. Bill stood up from the corner booth, then Jean, both of them farmers, both of them in their 60s, both of them raised people. Peg stopped wiping the counter, stood there with the towel in her hand watching. Jason looked around the diner, saw a town full of people who weren't his, who didn't like him, who were watching him threaten one of their own. He sat down. Carol, Ashford said, still standing, briefcase in hand. Sign the deed. Carol was crying, makeup running, hands shaking. She looked at Jason. We'll figure something out, Jason said. But his voice had lost its confidence. He wouldn't look at her. With what money? Carol whispered. It's gone. You spent it. The car, the apartment deposit, Vegas. We'll get more. How? Her voice broke. I just lost my house. I'm about to lose everything. And you... She looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. You're going to leave, aren't you? The money's gone, so you're going to leave. Jason didn't answer. Sign it, Carol, I said. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since she'd walked in. I saw her seeing me, 67 years old, work-worn, tired. The old man, the comfortable one, the safe one, the one she'd stolen from. I do love you, Ray, she whispered. No, you don't, but that's okay. Sign the paper. Mike slid the quitclaim deed across the table. Peg appeared with a pen. She was a notary. Had her stamp ready. Carol picked up the pen. Her hand shook so bad the first signature was illegible. She had to try again. She signed. Shaking, crying, but she signed. Peg witnessed it, stamped it. This document releases all claims by Carol Patterson Miller to the property located at 247 Elm Street, effective immediately. It was done. Carol sat there staring at the signed deed like she couldn't believe what she'd just done. Jason was on his phone, scrolling, not looking at her. Ashford stood there with his briefcase. And for a second, I thought he'd just leave. But Mike opened the third folder again, spread the text messages across the table. Mr. Ashford, before you go, your client should know something. Ashford looked at the texts. What? These messages show 8 months of planning. They show Mrs. Miller and Mr. Kerr discussing how to defraud Mr. Miller, how to hide the money, how to leave him with nothing. This isn't a crime of passion. This is premeditated fraud. Your client agreed to waive charges. If she signs the deed and walks away, she's signed. But Mr. Kerr? Mike looked at Jason. He's not my client's spouse. He's a co-conspirator. And theft by conspiracy is also a felony in Iowa. Jason's head snapped up. What? You spent the money. You knew it was fraudulently obtained. You participated in the planning. That makes you liable. You can't prove I knew. Mike tapped the text messages. Your words. Once you get the house money, take what you can from the old man. You knew. Jason stood up fast. I'm not sitting here for this. Sit down, Earl said. Not loud, not aggressive. Just flat and certain, like a man who'd given orders before and expected them obeyed. Jason looked at Earl. Started to say something, didn't, sat down. Ashford closed his briefcase. Mr. Kerr, I strongly suggest you retain counsel. Mrs. Miller, I'll send you final dissolution papers. You'll need to find another attorney for the divorce proceedings. You're leaving? Carol's voice was small. You lied to me about the timeline. You committed fraud. You put me in a position where I was unknowingly advocating for a criminal. Yes, Mrs. Miller, I'm leaving. He looked at Mike. The deed is signed. We're done here. He walked out of the diner without looking back. Carol and Jason sat across from us. The diner was quiet, except for the fryer hissing in the back and Peg's shoes squeaking on the linoleum. Where's the $80,000? I asked. Carol looked at Jason. Gone, she whispered. Where? His car payment, the apartment deposit, credit cards, Vegas, a watch, dinners. Her voice got smaller with each word. It's gone, Ray. All of it. I looked at Jason. He was staring at his phone like the answer was in there somewhere. You spent $80,000 in 4 months. I said. He didn't answer. Look at me. He didn't. Look at me. Jason looked up, tried to hold my gaze. Couldn't. Looked back at his phone. You're a coward, I said. Flat, simple, true. You steal from people, you spend their money, and you can't even look them in the eye. Unless Ray, Carol started. No, I held up my hand. I'm done. The house is mine. You've got until Friday to get your things out. After that, I'm changing the locks, and anything left goes to the curb. I stood up. Mike gathered the folders, put them back in his briefcase. Jason stood up too. This isn't over. Earl stood up behind us. So did Walsh from his table. Bill and Jean from their booth. 5 men, all older than Jason, all looking at him like he was something tracked in on someone's boot. Yeah, Jason said quietly. Yeah, it's over. He walked out. Didn't say goodbye to Carol. Didn't look back. Just left. Carol sat there alone at the booth, makeup ruined, hands shaking. Peg came over with the coffee pot. You need to leave now, Peg said. Not mean, just firm. Carol stood up, looked at me one more time. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she said. Yeah, you did. You just didn't mean to get caught. She walked out. The diner stayed quiet for another minute. Then Bill called out from the corner booth. Coffee's on me today, Ray. Peg smiled. Pie too, all of you. I sat back down. My hands were shaking now. Adrenaline crash, finally feeling everything I'd been holding back. Earl slid into the booth across from me. You did good. Doesn't feel good. No, but it's done. Mike filed the quitclaim deed with the county that afternoon. By 5 p.m., the house at 247 Elm Street was legally, fully, completely mine. No mortgage, no Carol, no Jason, no lies, just mine. I drove there after the diner. Pulled into the driveway behind Carol's empty spot. She'd already left, taken her car. The house sat quiet in the February cold. I walked up the front steps where Jason had walked. Put my key in the lock, went inside. It smelled like Carol's perfume and Jason's cologne. The couch cushions were dented where they'd sat. The coffee table had water rings from glasses I didn't remember. It didn't feel like mine yet, but it would. I walked through the house, room by room, changed the bedroom sheets, opened all the windows despite the cold, let the February wind blow through, clear out the smell of betrayal. Found Carol's things, makeup in the bathroom, books by the bed, a sweater on the chair, boxed them up, left them on the porch. Not cruel, just done. At 7 p.m., Earl knocked on the door. You good? Getting there. Come back to my place. Brought poker cards. Walsh is coming over. Mike, too. I should stay here. Start getting it back to normal. Ray, you've been sleeping in my guest room for a week. One more night won't hurt. House will still be here tomorrow. He was right. The house would still be here. But I needed to be here, too. Needed to sleep in my own bed, in my own space, to start claiming it back. Thanks, Earl, but I'm staying. He nodded. Understood. Call if you need anything. I will. He left. I was alone in my house for the first time in a week. I sat in the living room where Carol had confessed, where I'd scrolled through her phone, where my life had split in two, didn't turn on the TV, just sat in the silence. At 10 p.m. I went to bed. New sheets Earl had loaned me, washed twice to get rid of Carol's fabric softener smell. Lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle. It creaked different than Earl's house. Familiar creaks, mine. I slept for 3 hours. Woke at 1 a.m. disoriented, forgetting where I was. Remembered, my house, my bed, alone, not scared, not sad, just aware. I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in the dark, pulled out the photo Earl had taken, Jason on my steps, that smile on his face. Looked at it without anger now, just a piece of paper. Evidence of what was, not what is. Filed it in the desk drawer with the quitclaim deed, Carol's signed confession in legal form. Evidence drawer, closed, done. Dawn came through the kitchen window. February cold, but spring was coming. I could wait. 1 week later, I was painting the bedroom. Carol's sage green, The color she'd picked 3 years ago because it was calming was going under 2 coats of plain white. The kind of white that didn't make statements or have fancy names, just white. Earl showed up around noon with sandwiches from the diner. Stood in the doorway, watching me roll paint onto the wall. "Looks good," he said. "Looks blank." That's the point, isn't it? We ate the sandwiches sitting on the porch, turkey and Swiss, Peg's special with the horseradish mayo. The February cold had softened to something almost like spring, mud instead of ice. Birds starting to show up. "You hear about Carol?" Earl asked. "No." Well, Walsh heard through the church prayer chain. She moved to Des Moines, staying with a friend from college. And Jason? Gone. Left her the day after the diner, moved to Kansas City, apparently. Already has a new girlfriend. I chewed my sandwich. Didn't feel much about it. Not satisfaction, not pity, just fact. "She called me yesterday," I said. Earl looked at me. "What did she want?" "To apologize. Said she never meant to hurt me, that things just got out of hand, that she hopes I can forgive her someday." "What'd you say?" "Said I accepted her apology, but forgiveness would take time. I didn't have to give right now." Then I hung up. That was kind. That was done. We finished the sandwiches. Earl helped me move furniture back into the bedroom. Just my furniture now. Nothing of hers left. She'd come Friday, like I'd said, taken her clothes and books and the few things that were hers, left the rest. The divorce papers arrived Saturday. I'd signed them without reading, sent them back same day. By Monday, it was official. Raymond Miller, single, 67, sole owner of 247 Elm Street. Alone, but not lonely. There was a difference. Thursday night, Walsh called. "Ray, you busy?" "Watching TV, nothing good on." "Come down to the church. I want to show you something." I drove over, 5 minutes in a small town. Found Walsh in the basement fellowship hall with tables set up, toolboxes scattered around, electrical components spread out. "What's all this?" "Community skills program. Started it 3 weeks ago. Basic electrical, basic plumbing, basic carpentry. Teaching people to fix things themselves, save some money." And he smiled. "I need an electrical instructor. Thursdays, 6 to 8. Interested?" I looked at the setup. Wire strippers, voltage testers, outlet boxes, familiar tools, useful knowledge. "What's it pay?" "Nothing. Volunteer. But Diane usually makes cookies." "I'm in." Walsh's grin got wider. "Thought you might be." "First class is tonight. 6 people signed up." "Tonight? You didn't give me much warning." "Figured you'd say yes." The students showed up at 6. Mix of ages. Couple of younger guys trying to save money on electricians. Older woman whose husband had just died and she needed to learn the house. Middle-aged man wanting a new skill. And Linda, she came in last carrying a notebook and looking nervous. Gray hair, kind face, maybe 64. Smiled when she saw me. "You're the teacher?" "Apparently." "I'm Linda. I don't know anything about electrical work, so please be patient." That's what we're here for. Grab a seat." The class went better than I expected. Turned out, teaching was like any other work. You broke it down into steps, showed people how, let them try. Linda asked good questions, laughed when I made a bad joke about resistance and current. After class, parking lot, she stopped by my truck. That was great. I actually understood it. "You're a natural. Most people are scared of electricity. You just respected it. Will you be here next week?" "Every Thursday." "Good." She pulled out her keys. "I make cookies sometimes. Baking's cheaper than therapy." She said it with a self-aware smile that made me think she knew exactly what she was saying. "Bring them if you want. We'll eat them." "Okay. See you next week, Ray." She drove off in a sensible sedan. I sat in my truck for a minute, thinking about her smile, her questions. The way she'd said my name, like she'd been saying it for years, didn't mean anything. Just a woman in a class. But it was nice. I drove home. Pulled into the driveway of my house. Saw Earl's porch light on next door. He'd started leaving it on just in case I needed something. Spring was coming. I could feel it in the air, smell it in the mud, see it in the birds coming back. Things grew in spring, even things you thought were dead. 3 months later. April. The church electrical class was still going. 8 students now. Word had spread. Linda came every week, brought cookies like she'd promised. Chocolate chip. Chocolate chip last week. Oatmeal raisin this week. After class Thursday, parking lot again, she walked over. "Ray, can I ask you something?" "Sure." Do you drink coffee?" "Every morning." Miller's Diner, Saturday, 8 a.m., just coffee. Not a date, just coffee. I looked at her, saw a woman about my age who'd probably been through her own version of hard, who made cookies and asked good questions and had kind eyes. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." Her smile was worth the risk. Friday evening, Earl showed up at my door with 2 beers. Heard you got asked to coffee. And Walsh tell you. Small town. Also, yes, Walsh told me. As we sat on my porch, the one I'd refinished last week, replaced the boards that had rotted. The evening was warm enough, we didn't need jackets. April doing what April does. You nervous? Earl asked. A little. Been a long time since I tried this. It's different than with Carol. You're different. How? You know what you're not willing to ignore anymore. That's wisdom. We drank our beers. Watched the sunset over Earl's identical roof. Heard his wind chimes. New ones he'd put up last week, making music in the breeze. Earl, I never said thank you. For what? The photos, telling me, standing up in the diner, all of it. You didn't have to do any of that. Yeah, I did. Staying silent doesn't keep the peace. Just delays the explosion. Still, thank you. He clinked his beer bottle against mine. That's what friends do. We finished the beers as dark came on. Earl stood to leave, stopped at the steps. Ray? Yeah? That radio in your workshop, the one you were fixing when all this started. You ever get it working? I hadn't touched it in 3 months. Hadn't even gone in the workshop much. Too many memories of that Tuesday afternoon, the piece before everything broke. No, haven't tried. Maybe you should. Spring's good for radio signals, atmospheric conditions. After he left, I walked out to the garage, turned on the light. The workshop looked the same. Tools where I'd left them, radio still disassembled on the bench, my coffee thermos right where I'd set it down 3 months ago. I picked up the thermos, opened it. The coffee inside had grown mold, green and fuzzy. I dumped it in the shop sink, washed it out, filled it with water for now, looked at the radio, sat down on the stool, picked up the soldering iron, started where I'd left off. Saturday morning, coffee with Linda. I got to Miller's Diner at 7:55. She was already there, sitting in a booth by the window, saw me come in, smiled, waved. I slid into the seat across from her. You're early, I said. Nervous habit, always early. Peg brought coffee without being asked. Morning, Ray. Linda, you two want breakfast or just coffee? Just coffee for now, Linda said. Peg winked at me and walked away. We sat there for a second, both of us nervous, both trying not to show it. So, Linda said, electrical class has been good. Yeah, you're one of the best students. I'm competitive. Used to drive my husband crazy. She stirred her coffee. He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Dropped dead, changing a tire. I'm sorry. Thank you. It was fast. He didn't suffer. But it left me with a house full of things I didn't know how to fix. She smiled. Hence the electrical class. Hence. Your wife left you. Yeah, 3 months ago. She was having an affair, stole some money. It got complicated. I heard. Small town. Small town, I agreed. We drank our coffee. The silence wasn't awkward. Just 2 people figuring out if they wanted to do this. Ray, I'm not looking for a husband. I'm 64 years old and I like my house the way it is. I'm not looking for a wife. I'm 67 and I just got my house back to myself. Good. So this is just coffee. Just coffee. But maybe next week it could be coffee and breakfast. Maybe. Her smile was real, warm. The kind that came from a person who'd lived long enough to know what mattered and what didn't. We talked for an hour. About nothing important. Gardens, weather, the diner's new pie flavors. She told me about her kids, grown and moved away. I told her about my first wife, how she'd died, how I'd been alone for a decade before Carol. You're not afraid of being alone, she observed. No, I've done it before. It's not scary. It's just quiet. But you're here anyway. Yeah, because quiet's okay, but company's nice. If it's the right company, I'll drink to that. We clinked coffee mugs. When I left the diner at 9, Linda walked me to my truck. Same time next week? She asked. Yeah, I'd like that. Good. I'll bring cookies to class Thursday. You don't have to. I want to. Besides, teaching people takes energy. You need sustenance. She drove off. I sat in my truck for a minute, thinking about her laugh, her honesty, the way she didn't need anything from me except company. Different than Carol. I was different too. I drove home, pulled into my driveway, saw Earl working in his yard. How'd it go? He called over. Good. Real good. You asking her out again? It's not really out. It's just coffee. Earl grinned. Sure it is, and my poker face is perfect. That evening, Earl knocked on my door with 2 beers. Workshop time, he said. We walked out to the garage together. I'd been working on the radio all week. Replaced the bad capacitor, resoldered the connections, cleaned the corrosion off the antenna leads. Earl handed me a beer. I powered on the radio. Static. I adjusted the frequency dial slowly, 740 MHz. The static cleared slightly. Voices underneath, faint but there. There, Earl said. Right there. I fine-tuned it. The voice came through clearer. Male, distant, talking about fishing. Montana accent to Flathead Lake area, just got back from ice fishing. Conditions are clear tonight. CQ, this is KL7AA, calling any station. KL7AA, clear. The call sign hung in the air. CQ, ham radio code for calling any station. I'm in someone out in Montana, alone, sending his voice into the dark, hoping someone would answer. Earl looked at me. You should answer. I stared at the microphone. Hadn't transmitted in years. Hadn't really talked to anyone except Earl and Mike and Walsh in months. Small world, small circle. I don't know what to say. Truth, that you heard him, that it's good to be heard. I picked up the mic. My finger hovered over the transmit button. Deep breath. I pressed it. KL7AA, this is Kure. Good to hear you. Released the button. Waited. Static for a few seconds. Then, Kure, this is KL7AA. Good to hear you too, friend. Where are you transmitting from? I keyed the mic again. Iowa. Small town. You're in Montana? Yep. Flathead Lake area. Beautiful out here. You fish? Used to. Long time ago. And we talked for 10 minutes. Nothing deep. Weather. Fishing. Life in small places. He was retired, lived alone, spent his days on the lake and his nights on the radio, just talking to whoever answered. Well, Kure, good talking. Clear conditions tonight. Catch you again? Yeah, I'll be here. 73's friend, KL7AA clear. 73, KRA clear. I set the mic down. Looked at Earl. He was smiling. See, not so hard. Forgot how good it feels. Talking to someone who doesn't know anything about me. Fresh start. Everyone needs one. And we sat there in the garage doorway, drinking our beers, watching the sunset. The radio crackled with voices. Ohio, Texas, Canada. Voices from places I'd never been, people I'd never meet, all just sending their words into the dark and hoping someone listened. You ready? Earl asked. For what? Whatever comes next. I thought about Linda's smile, about the house that was mine, about the radio working, the spring coming, the town that had stood beside me. Yeah, I said. I think I am. Thursday, electrical class. Linda brought chocolate chip cookies, still warm. Didn't have to do that, I said. Wanted to. She set them on the table. Besides, you're teaching me to fix things. Least I can do is feed you. The class went well. Afterward, parking lot, Linda stopped by my truck again. Ray, I've been thinking. Yeah? Coffee tomorrow morning, but this time, breakfast too. My treat. You don't have to... I know, but I want to. Is that okay? I looked at her, really looked. Saw someone who wasn't trying to fix me or save me or take anything from me, just someone who wanted company, same as I did. Yeah, I said. That's okay. Good. 8 o'clock? I'll be there. She drove off. I sat in my truck, thinking about tomorrow, about breakfast, about how it felt to look forward to something again. Earl's truck pulled up beside mine. He rolled down his window. You asked her, didn't you? She asked me, actually. Even better. He grinned. Same time at my place later, Walsh is coming over. Poker night. Yeah, I'll bring beer. You bring beer last time. Then you bring beer. Deal. I drove home, pulled into my driveway. The house sat quiet in the April evening. Porch light on, windows clean, mine. Earl's porch light was on too. Walsh's car was already in the driveway. Poker night, friends, routine. I grabbed the beer from my fridge, walked the 30 feet to Earl's door. He opened it before I could knock. Come on, we're waiting on you. Inside, Walsh was shuffling cards at the kitchen table. Coffee was made. Chips were out. Ray, Walsh said, heard you've got a coffee date tomorrow. News travels fast. Small town, Earl said. Also, Peg told me. We played poker until midnight. I lost $20. Didn't care. Friday night, after breakfast with Linda, which turned into lunch, after she'd told me about her garden and I'd told her about fixing the radio, after we'd said goodbye in the diner parking lot, with plans to see each other again next week, after all that, I went home. Stood in my workshop, looked at the radio, still on from last night, still glowing green, turned the dial, found a frequency, listened. A voice from California. CQ, any stations, this is K6XYZ. I picked up the mic, pressed the button. K6XYZ, this is Kure, I hear you. The response came fast. Kure, good evening, how are conditions in your area? Clear, I said. Real clear. We talked for 5 minutes. Just two people connecting across distance, sharing nothing important, sharing everything that mattered. When the conversation ended, I set the mic down, left the radio on. Voices continued in the background. Ohio, Montana, Texas, Florida. People calling out, people answering. Connection. That's all any of us really needed. Earl knocked on the workshop door. You coming in, or you staying out here all night? Coming in. We walked to his house together. Saturday night, nothing special. Just two old men who'd become friends through crisis and stayed friends after. You think people can start over? I asked. At our age? Hell, Ray, we're not dead yet. Starting over's just called living. I laughed. First real laugh in months. We watched some TV, drank some coffee, talked about nothing. Around 11, Earl stood up to head to bed. Same time tomorrow? He asked. Same time. After he went to his room, I sat there a few more minutes, then walked the 30 feet back to my house, my space, my quiet, but not lonely, not anymore. I had coffee with Linda tomorrow, class on Thursday, poker with Earl and Walsh next Friday, the radio working in my workshop, spring coming with its mud and birds and new growth. I had a town that had stood beside me, friends who'd shown up, a future that was mine to build. I went to bed in clean sheets, in my own bed, in my own house, and I slept. Sunday morning, a week after coffee with Linda turned into something regular. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee steaming in the mug, dawn light coming through the window, church bells from downtown, 9 a.m. service starting. I wasn't going today. Needed quiet instead of ritual. Needed to think. I pulled out the photograph from the desk drawer, the one Earl had taken. Jason on my front steps, that confident smile, that expensive jacket. The moment everything split. Looked at it without feeling much. Just a piece of paper now. Evidence of something that happened, something that was over. Some men would have burned it, destroyed the proof of their humiliation, erased it like it never happened. I filed it back in the drawer. With the quitclaim deed, the divorce papers, the notary affidavit, evidence drawer, closed but not destroyed. Because it did happen. Carol did betray me. Jason did exist. I did lose $80,000. But I kept my house, kept my dignity, kept myself, and that was worth more than the money. People talk about closure like it's a door you shut. It's not. It's more like a radio signal. You tune to a different frequency. The old frequency's still there, broadcasting into nothing. But you're not listening anymore. You're listening to something else. Carol chose Jason. Jason chose money. The money's gone. Nobody won that game, except maybe I did, because I kept what mattered. The house was worth more than I'd thought. Not the property value, though that was real, but what it represented. 30 years of work, a place I'd brought my first wife to, where she died. A place I'd thought I'd share with Carol, where she'd lied. A place that was mine through everything. Some people might have sold it. Too many bad memories. Too much pain in the walls. But I'd built those walls. Run the wiring, fix the roof, replace the furnace. Every nail and wire and board. I knew this house. It was mine in a way nothing else ever had been. And I wasn't giving that up for Ghost. Dignity isn't something you're given, it's something you protect. Sometimes protecting it means walking away. Sometimes it means standing and fighting. The trick is knowing which. Earl taught me that a man deserves to know. Walsh taught me that protecting yourself is righteous. Mike taught me that leverage matters. Martha and Peg and Bill and Jean taught me that community shows up when you need it. Linda was teaching me that starting over doesn't mean you're desperate. It means you're willing. I finished my coffee, washed the mug, dried it, hung it on the hook Carol had chosen, keeping some things, not all. Saturday's note from Linda was still on the counter. Coffee was nice, again sometime. L. I'd already texted her back. Thursday after class, she'd responded, perfect. I'll bring cookies. Small things, coffee and cookies and electrical lessons, but they added up to something. Company, connection, possibility. I walked out to the workshop. The radio sat on the shelf, green dial still glowing from last night. I didn't turn it on, just looked at it. Working, fixed, restored. Symbol of something broken that could be repaired if you knew what you were doing and you took the time. My tools were organized on the bench, socket wrenches, soldering iron, electrical tape, everything in its place, everything mine. Earl's truck pulled into my driveway, Saturday morning. He'd be wanting coffee, probably had something planned, poker or TV or just sitting on the porch watching the world wake up. I grabbed 2 mugs from the kitchen, headed to the door. Some houses die in silence, the kind of silence where nobody speaks up, where lies go unchallenged, where theft and betrayal just happen and everyone pretends they don't see. My house didn't die in silence. It just needed the right people in it. Starting with me, then Earl, maybe Linda, maybe others. The house was just walls and roof. Home was the people who gave a damn. I opened the door. Earl stood there with his newspaper and his familiar knock that wasn't really a knock, just his presence. Coffee? I asked. Always. We walked through my house to the kitchen, poured coffee, sat at the table where I'd read Carol's text 3 months ago, where I'd planned the diner confrontation, where I'd signed divorce papers. Same table, different life. Radio working good? Earl asked. Yeah. Talked to someone in California last night, then Montana again, then just listen for a while. Good. He sipped his coffee. Walsh called this morning. Wants to know if you'll teach the electrical class permanent. Maybe expand to basic carpentry next month. I'll think about it. Linda coming to class Thursday? Yeah, with cookies. Earl smiled into his coffee. Good. We sat there in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that comes from friendship, from shared history, from two men who'd been through something hard and come out the other side. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda. Found a lamp at a garage sale. Won't turn on. Can you take a look? I typed back. Bring it to class. We'll fix it. Thanks. You're a good teacher. I set the phone down, looked at Earl. You ever regret it? I asked. Taking those photos, telling me. Getting involved in all this? No. No hesitation. Staying silent would have been worse. For you, for me, for Emily, even though she'll never know. You think she'll ever talk to you again? I don't know. But I did the right thing this time. That's all I can control. The church bells rang again, service ending, people going home to Sunday dinners and quiet afternoons. Out in my workshop, the radio sat glowing, ready whenever I wanted to reach out, to connect, to talk to strangers in Montana or California or Texas. People I'd never meet, but could still touch with just my voice, traveling invisible through air. That's what this had all been about, really. Being heard, being seen, refusing to disappear into someone else's lie. Carol had tried to make me invisible, to steal what I'd built, to erase me, to treat me like I didn't matter, because I was old and safe and comfortable. But I'd fought back, not with violence, not with revenge, with evidence and allies and the simple refusal to surrender what was mine. And now here I was, coffee with a friend, text from a woman who made me smile, a house that was mine, a workshop where broken things got fixed, a radio that worked, a town that knew my name. Some people might say I lost, $80,000, gone, 12 years with Carol wasted, trust shattered. But those people don't understand. I didn't lose anything that mattered. I shed weight I didn't need to carry, and what I kept, my house, my dignity, my self-respect, my friends, my future, that was everything. Earl finished his coffee, stood up. Poker tonight? Walsh and Mike are coming. I'll bring beer. You brought beer last time. Then I'll bring it again, he laughed. Walked to the door, stopped. Ray? Yeah? I'm proud of you. He left before I could answer. I sat there at my kitchen table, in my house, in the quiet Sunday morning light, proud. Earl was proud of me. I was proud of me, too. Outside, the April sun was climbing. Birds in the trees Earl and I had planted 20 years ago. Mud drying to dirt in the driveway. Spring doing what spring does, bringing everything back to life. Even things you thought were dead. I stood up, washed the coffee mugs, looked out the window at Earl's house, identical to mine, 30 feet away. At the workshop where my radio glowed green, ready to send my voice across distances to people who'd listen. At the future, Thursday's class, Saturday's coffee, tonight's poker, next week's whatever. At my life. Mine to live, mine to build, mine to share. I picked up my phone. Looked at Linda's text about the broken lamp, typed, looking forward to Thursday, sent it, opened the back door, let the spring air in, let the old air out. Some houses die in silence. Mine didn't. It just needed me to find my voice again, to transmit, to be heard, to answer when someone called, and I was ready.